So Alex, nice to thank you for the coffee, and really nice to see you.
Thank you very much for coming over, setting up all of this, for doing this really interesting project. I like the idea of recording this very critical moment where more and more Nepalis are immigrating to the States.
Mm-hmm.
So I came here first 21 years ago, and at that stage there were not many Nepalis living here. A few.
Yeah.
Taraderetienan, you could count them on the hand, but nowadays, as you know, if you go down to El Cerrito, there are whole parts where it feels almost like being in Kathmandu.
Yeah, I know. You always hear somebody talking in Nepali, especially if you go to Costco.
Yeah, or if you just go to the farmers market in El Cerrito, you rub shoulders with Nepalis, also doing their own shopping.
Yeah.
Greeneries and so on, yes.
So
this really changed here. So I think it's an interesting idea of the project. Of course, it's a foregone conclusion that the kids born here, being first generation Americans, basically just with having their roots in Nepal, of course they will become American, just like your kids. And my kids are very explicit about the fact that they're German, even though they also have German citizenship through me. But really, they're having grown up here. This is for them. This is the epicenter of the civilized, reasonable world. And being half Nepalese and half German, that's certainly part of their identity. But they're Bay Area kids. There's no doubts about it.
They grew up here.
Yes.
Yeah, basically.
They grew up here, and they also kind of embrace consciously, the kind of diversity that we have here, the society in which we grow up.
So you have two daughters, right?
I have two daughters. So I moved to the States. I first came to Berkeley to teach, not just about Nepalese Buddhism, but also partly Nepalese and Indian Buddhism. So I came first in 2001. And our elder daughter Manju had just born, so Sunita and Manju came a couple of months after I started out here.
Oh.
So returning to my two daughters, Manju was born in summer 2001 in Patan, and a few weeks afterwards I came to Berkeley on a visiting appointment to teach Buddhism at Kel. And Sunita and Manju joined me a couple of months after I arrived here. So we've been basically kind of living here more or less with interruptions, going back for a year to Nepal. The kids, Manju and Anna, went to school there for a year, and I'm constantly going to and fro, not constantly, but at least until the pandemic started, I was every year in the summer in Nepal. And for the kids, the Nepalese roots are very, very important. But at the same time, they feel that they're a product and part of the Bay Area culture. So the younger daughter, Anna, was born here a little bit after we came first, 2.5 years later. And so she was born in Berkeley, and she is, in that sense, technically speaking, a Native American. She could become president of this country, in theory.
So I think she's about the same age as my younger son, Taze. I think, they're about the same age.
Yeah. So both Manju and Anna grew up basically here. Their full names is Manju is called Manju Timila because she was born on a full moon day in Nepal. And so Timila, the idea, kind of the moonshine or the full moon.
That's nice.
And Anna, as a complement of this, is called Anna Neba. Neba, of course, means sunshine.
Oh.
So in a sense, we have moonshine and sunshine in the family.
Neba is German? No.
Yeah, they also have a German name.
German name.
So Manju's German name is Isabel, but nobody's ever used that. But of course, in the case of Anna, that's really, you know, of course, it could also be Nepalese, like in Annapurna, but Anna is, of course, a very European name.
Anna is kind of very, in many countries have.
Yeah, that was a little bit the idea, to choose a name that works everywhere.
Yeah, also easy to pronounce and write too. So, how long you been living? I mean, with the UC Berkeley.
So I came here first in 2001. First I came as a visitor, and then I went back for to Europe, where I was teaching in Austria at the university. But then I was appointed as permanent faculty here. So I've been here since 2003. I was appointed, so it's almost 20 years that I've been with the university. But what is nice, I've been able, during the time that I've held the appointment, for 1 year I went for research purposes in Nepal, and also 1 year I took the family to Germany so that the kids would also go to school in Germany. While when we lived in Nepal, both girls went to school, which was very nice.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, what made you, go into a lot of Buddhist studies, and so how it started in your career?
So I had no idea that I would become a professor of Buddhist studies or religious studies, or even the larger fields of arts and humanities. I was not this wasn't something intentional. All that I wanted to be sure is that I don't end up a lawyer in this lawyer parampara which we have in my family.
Oh, really?
That wasn't my vision of the future. So I went for my undergraduate studies to London, where they have a place very suitable for my interest studies, called the School of Oriental and African Studies. So was in short, and then afterwards I went to Germany, and I got more and more attractive, drawn into doing Buddhist studies. Mainly that meant for me reading Sanskrit, also Pali. Then eventually also it meant studying Tibetan and Chinese, because these are the principal tools for people interested in studying the scriptures and the history of the Buddhist thought. That's really what I was interested in. At some stage, a mentor of mine kind of said, well, it's all fine understanding how Buddhism works in theory. You have a good understanding of Buddhist teachings and doctrine, but it doesn't really mean that much. You need to understand what it actually means, Buddhism on the ground. So he basically came up with a very concrete suggestion that I go to Nepal, where he'd spend a lot of time. Bernhard Kölvers, he's called. And so I think, the first time I went to Nepal was just as a tourist in 88, or possibly in 89. I think either 88 or 89. And then I started coming every year in the middle of 90s, maybe 94 or something like this. Yeah, actually even 93. So since then I've been coming to Nepal very regularly. At some stage I got a research fellowship to spend 3 years in a go. That's when I met Sunita, and at that point Nepal really became something of a home. So I continue, Sunita and the girls go relatively frequently back to see Sunita's mom, and basically to continue to have a life, or a sort of life, in Nepal. And I go back also more on my own. I have I share a flat with a friend in Bauda, so I still have my own place in some ways.
Even more interesting. And I have 2 boys and 1 daughter, and all were born here. So Jyoti and Taze, Actually, Tej is same age as Anna, and Jyoti is a little older than Manju, maybe a year or something. Jyoti was born in late 1999, and yeah, it's interesting, raising kids. But the thing is, they don't see. I haven't got the opportunity to teach them Nepali. I mean, here, like Manju speaks Newari, right? She speaks very fluent Newari, actually.
Yeah,
Both
both
of them.
kids speak Nevari very well.
Yeah.
That's the wonderful thing that Sunita is giving to them.
Yeah.
They speak only Nevari with their mother, and when we spent a year in Nepal, when I went around with the kids, of course, there's this white dad, and his kids speak better Newari than the kids of the locals in Nepal.
Yeah.
Because it's basically unadulterated by Nepali. They actually also understand Nepali. But this worked very well because there was no intention between Sunita and myself that they would end up speaking Nevari. Actually, not only Nevari, they're completely fluent in German.
Yeah.
When they talk German, it really sounds like they're native speakers. Not that the range of the vocabulary and the command of the language is really identical to a singular native speaker, but it's very impressive. It worked because I never spoke English at home with Sunita, never. We speak Nepali between us, so I speak German with the kids, and Sunita speaks Nevari with the girls. The girls speak among each other English, of course, after all, we're in the States. So we managed to have 4 different languages constantly being used very naturally. Not that anybody had planned this, it's just the way things worked out.
So, what you spoke with Sunita, what language do you use?
We only speak Nepali. We never spoke another language.
Nepali, oh.
Yes, but at this stage, the really interesting thing, I mean, I'm at the university teaching classes on Indian Buddhism, but sometimes also I teach undergraduate classes about Nepalese Buddhism and history of religion in Nepal. So this is what I do here. But Sunita teaches at the German language preschool in Albany.
Oh, really?
The so-called Bay Area Kinderstube. So at this stage, her German is really excellent because she's been teaching there for so long time. The point of this preschool is that it's German language preschool. So most of the kids have half or one German parent, less frequently 2 German parents. And so Sunita, in the process, really learned to speak German very well. I guess her German is better than my Nepali.
Well,
but it doesn't feel natural for us to talk German since we've always talked Nepali only.
Yeah, remember Tej can speak German too. And he was learning German, and one day Sunita was there. So Sunita and Manju, I think, at their place in Richmond, and Tej was really impressed that I never thought a Newari woman would talk German so well.
Well, this is basically the Bay Area, New York. I mean, this is partly what I find so lovely and wonderful about this area. So when Sunita and myself first moved to the West, I was still, at that stage, assistant professor in a town called Leipzig. Leipzig is in what once upon a time was, politically speaking, East Germany.
Yeah.
So there was no tradition of immigration from Asians, also not from Turkish people as in West Germany. So when we were living there, people liked Sunita and were charmed by Sunita, but of course she was sticking out like a sore thumb, looking very different than all of the Germans around us. So there was no kind of hiding the fact of her Asian origins. But here, when you move around, people couldn't care less.
Yeah.
I mean, at this stage on the campus, if you're ethnically Caucasian like I am, you're in the minority. At least from, at least if you talk about absolute majorities and absolute minorities. So that means, I think it's for the kids perfectly natural. The fact that they're partly Nepalese, partly also German, doesn't make it. It's just the way it should be.
Yeah, it's
but even in the States, as you know, it's not everywhere like this. Of course, also down in LA and in certain parts of New York, Jackson Heights. But there you have to go Jackson Heights in New York. But here it's basically everywhere.
Yeah, here, especially this part of California, but even if you drive a few hours up north, then things very different. You go close to Oregon border, it's nothing diverse like here.
Yeah, no, very quickly.
Yeah. I went to school in the south, Savannah, Georgia. It was very different.
Yeah.
But here it's really great to raise kids because it's they become more open-minded and.
Yeah, but what it means, at least in the case of my kids, so they've gone to school in Nepal, they've gone to school in Germany, they have grandparents in Germany and Nepal.
Yeah.
So this is part of their identity, it's also part of their possibilities. So Manju is studying in Europe and she's studying in the Netherlands, living just, 150 miles away from her grandparents, probably even less than that.
Oh, that's nice.
And kind of in their vicinity. That's part of the possibilities, the range of the possibilities that she has. And Anna has gone to high school for the last 2.5 years. Her high school was a boarding school in Ireland. So she also has, this kind of European connection. And they both have the Nepalese connection. Manju spent basically a gap year after high school in Nepal. Nice. She was working as a volunteer teacher in Sindhu Palchok. Yeah, but then unfortunately the pandemic struck. Yeah. So the Gao basically became disconnected. She had to get out of the village with just about the last bus leaving for Kathmandu. Wow. And then she stayed for the next months in Patan with her grandmother and with her Nini and actually not Nini, with her Torma. And then she was stuck there, but so she continued to live there, connect to Nepalese. She actually works for a Nepalese NGO called FACE, and it allows her to really relate and identify with Nepal. So she has all of these options. And the interesting question is, what do they make of the fact that they're natives of the Bay Area? But Anna is also, she will be going off together with Sunita to Nepal in a couple of months. She will be joined there in Manju by Manju. So the idea and hope is that she will also do the volunteer work, maybe teaching at a school for underprivileged kids, teaching English in whatever program there is. So it means she will also have more exposure to Nepal. It also means that in the case of Manju, her Nepali really picked up. She hadn't learned Nepali here, but of course she picked up when I talk with Sunita in Nepali, she picks up what's going on, they understand. At this stage she speaks with some ease in Nepali as well, so I'm hopeful that the same will happen to Anna. But what the kids are going to make of this in their life, who knows? Certainly none of the business of their dad, so they have to figure this out. And I think what I appreciate, this is a very beautiful part of the world, a very liberal society, open-minded, welcoming to foreigners, including to all of these immigrants coming in from Nepal. And that's something that I really like. It doesn't, from my perspective, it doesn't mean that they should necessarily feel obliged to live here. To my mind, being raised in the Bay Area is a wonderful way of being raised as a citizen, as a global citizen of the world.
Yeah.
It's not that I ever wanted to, it sounds kind of rather pompous, not that I wanted to ever raise citizens of the world in that global sense, but that's just kind of the natural result of growing up in the Bay Area.
Yeah, that's really, really, feel fortunate, to be here. For me, like, even when I was little, I didn't know anything about the world. I just felt like I don't want to live here. I want to live somewhere else. That's how I felt like when I was a kid. So when I came here, all of a sudden, before I coming here, I studied fine arts for a long time in several universities, but once I came here, it was so many things to do that I just lost interest in art. I just felt like there were so many more fun things to do. I liked a lot of woodworking and those kind of playing with tools. I spent a lot of time doing that, and for about 13 years or 14 years, I didn't paint at all. Then when Jyoti and Tay started growing up a little bit, then I felt like, I need to paint them. Then it started again. So, it's a great place to be, and you don't have to be locked down in one thing.
Yeah, for me, after as I told you, I was here visiting Professor just for a term. Then I went back to Europe. Actually, at that time, I was teaching. I went to Austria, to Vienna, where I began to teach. And at the time when I got the offer to come back to Berkeley, I also had the good fortune of having an offer from a place in Germany to which I could have also gone. So I was weighing the options of raising the children and living together with Sunita in the Bay Area on Germany. And I had a feeling this was, the openness here and just the diversity on the ground was a very compelling argument. I mean, the politics of this country I found and still find very difficult to get used to. So at the bottom of my heart, I'm still German, and I find it much easier to relate and in many ways to feel home in Europe. The sensitivities, also politically speaking, the sensitivities are very different from here. So to live in a country where shootings happen in the schools which my kids attend, that makes me obviously feel uncomfortable. That's the downside of the larger context of being in the United States. But the Bay Area, fortunately, has very little of this. And I feel blessed to be at a wonderful university where we wouldn't twice consider to do something like this. And where, knock wood, we haven't had any of these kind of events happening. So this country is split into camps, and it's really worrying for me to think that this country doesn't find the common ground on which to meet and to resolve their differences.
Yeah, it's been bad, but I read a lot of history and watch a lot of documentary podcasts, and the country's actually been very polarized even from the beginning, but but the Trump time it became more pronounced. Now we have social media, and it's a different thing now. No one can control anything from one central point.
Yeah. Also, one has to be very careful not to just identify this polarization with America. It's very stark here, but it also happens elsewhere. The polarization also is happening increasingly in Europe, and there are different, politically speaking, different camps in India.
Like in Hungary, right now, Orban, and even in Turkey,
Yeah,
what's it?
Erdogan, yes.
Erdogan, all this.
So it's something that's not unique to the United States. And in many ways, it behooves us not to give up on the United States, but to strengthen the sane elements in this country.
Yeah, it's.
So this is, when I'm thinking about the kids, where can they make the difference, or where should they spend their future, I'm very happy that they have the option to play the Nepalese card. Makes it unfortunately a little bit more difficult because they don't get citizenship through their mum. So the Nepalese citizenship you only acquire through the dad. So through the mum you cannot acquire it. Anyway, you can only, according to Nepal, you can only have one citizenship. So I wouldn't really advise them to forsake their American and German citizenship in favor of Nepalese.
Yeah, definitely.
Would be nice if they could have this in addition, but that's not the way it works. Still, they have the possibility to go back to Nepal. When they're in Nepal, they get a family relative visa through their mother or through their toma or through their grandmother. So that's also possible there. So for me, the fact that the kids have this option means a lot. That's up to them to decide. I would never tell them, give up on the States. The place is, is in crisis. No, I would say the world is in crisis, and be wherever you feel most happy. Be where.
Oh, this is a little scam call.
I keep on getting those.
Yeah.
So basically, to just repeat that thought.
Yeah.
So I would never advise the kids, the States is in crisis, it's a place you should think about leaving. No. Or, Europe is better or Nepal is better. I would never do that. So for me, it's all, I'm very glad that Sunita and myself have given them the option of being a happy citizen here and contributing to the US, but also of returning to living in Europe, and also being in Nepal, which I think is in things, as I told you, the first time I came to Nepal was in the late 80s, and wow, has Nepal come a long way. Yes, of course, some of the developments are unfortunate. The urbanization in the Kathmandu Valley, ecologically speaking, of course, it's terrible to compare it to once the beautiful state it was in. But there are many things also Nepal changes for better. I think in some ways Nepal has come really a long way. Not that it's been easy, not that everything that happened is wonderful, but on the other hand, I do think that a lot of things that happen in Nepal give reason also for hope, not just for despair.